Hello everybody. Got a new topic for you for today. And usually I get a lot of ideas from the comments I receive on my various videos. And this is what happened with this topic, and this is also part of the larger title of the mighty female game. And I get inspiration from these comments, and sometimes these comments sometimes they impress me, but sometimes they frustrate me. A lot of times I usually pick the ones that frustrate me because it can be used as a learning moment, learning opportunity. So one commenter says, women are like children. We men are supposed to lead and dominate. Women are more than happy to submit to a real man. Sounds good to me. Sounds real good to me. And then somebody replies to this comment and says, yes, any man who allows himself to be controlled by a female is weak. There should be no question as to who wears the pants. Well, it all sounds great to me, let me tell you. I am not the one that's going to object to that one. However, if that was the case, we would be living in a different world. A very, very different world than we're living in now. And I'm not talking about a different world in the Western world. I'm talking about a different world everywhere on Earth, if that was the case. So again, these comments, these are the ones that frustrate me. They frustrate me because, according to my opinion, they are, in my knowledge, they are not based on reality. They are based on fantasy. They are based on male fantasy, masculine fantasy. And if there was such a thing as a male romance novel, then this is the attitude and the fantasy that would be depicted in those male romance novels. So maybe there's a big market for male romance novels. But to use these comments as a starting point, let's continue with this. Let me explain to you. The arrogance of the entitlement mentality of every female is innate. It is genetically and biologically predetermined. Thus, the implicit task of every female from the very beginning of any association with a male is to incrementally establish complete female control and dominance within that relationship or any relationship, and dominance of the male within any relationship. Every relationship must have a pure gynocentric purpose and objective in order for it to be feasible. to even exist or to continue to exist. It has to be, by definition, by default, it has to be gynocentric. It will not function otherwise. That's why it's very strange for me that divorced men would make such comments, because they would be the ones the best to know how women function within a relationship. They've gone through it, and they suffered through it, and then they got crushed by it. So are they not learning anything from their experience? Of course, I'm very sympathetic, because I know exactly what goes on, and I know exactly what they went through. But we're here to learn. And if we can dissect female nature, and if we can understand how a woman functions, I'm not even saying that a woman knows how a woman functions. They don't. It's just so natural for them. It's the only way they know how to function. Women function as whores, naturally. Every woman, everywhere in the world, they function as whores. It's all they know. That's what they're built to do. That's what they're designed to do. By nature, or by God, or whatever you want to call it. So they're not even aware of it. Of course they're going to deny it. It's like a leopard doesn't know it has spots. If you tell a giraffe it's got a long neck, it says, what? I don't have a long neck. My neck is totally normal. Same with a woman. They're not even conscious or aware of female nature. And you know what? Frankly, they don't give a shit. They're biological. They function under biological determinism. And the same way as a man is instinctually built to inseminate females, as many as he can have access to, and as large of a variety that he has access to. That is a normal male, healthy male, functioning. Same way, the female is built to function a certain way, and that is to be the natural whore. Let me continue here. I'll explain. The female is the ultimate deceiver. But before I get into that, the female decides everything. The female is the decider of this relational outcome. Whatever the relational outcome is, the female decides. Not the male. The male has no part in it whatsoever. You can give me anecdotes of what you did and how you dumped women left and right, and you can claim anything you want, especially on the internet. But in reality, which is what we deal with on this channel, it's what I deal with, it usually doesn't happen. And I know it doesn't happen. I cannot be fooled into believing otherwise, because male and female nature is consistent. They work in terms of patterns. It can be predicted, very easily predicted. And if you know enough about female nature and male nature, you can predict pretty well everything. And that is how my particular brand of therapy works. I can see what went on, what is going on, and I can predict what will go on. And I can tell you exactly what will happen. So the female is the decider of the relational outcome, the direction and the duration of any relationship. The female decides. The viability of any relationship is for her, not for you. So the viability, the evaluation of the viability is up to her, not up to you. The female decides the feasibility for relational continuation based on her projected gains. These being tangible gains. So let me repeat that again. The female decides the feasibility of relational continuation based on projected gains. She will have to very quickly anticipate what she will be able to gain from any particular relationship. And these are based on tangible gains. Understand? Tangible gains. Things you can actually touch. Not emotional bullshit. Not orgasms. That will not get her anywhere. It'll only get her in the fucking gutter. She'll be even a dirtier whore than she already is. And she'll have nothing to show for it except cum on her sweater. So forget about that kind of fantasy that women are looking at you for sex. For your crappy sex. No. They're smart. They're smarter than that, okay? And it's not even smartness. It's instinct. So these being tangible gains, not emotional gains. So forget about women being emotional. In actual reality, they are not emotional. Men are. Men are. Men work on pure emotion. What do you think horniness is? And that's the other denigration of men, is that the stupid female, of which probably almost all females are classified as the stupid female because they know nothing and care nothing about male nature. And if they knew anything about male nature, they would realize that the male, you know, they denigrate the male and say, oh, they're just after sex. The male is not after sex. The male is after female validation. Sex alone leaves a man empty. Your slimy, dirty, smelly hole leaves a man empty. He has to have emotion. Besides that. Now, he gets it. He tries to get it. And it's not a bad way to get it through sex. That's his method. That's the male method. But sex is not what he's after. So do not denigrate men to such superficiality. It makes me angry to hear that. You make men seem very shallow. And they're not. You know who's shallow? The female is shallow. Extremely shallow. Because they don't have the capacity for emotion. Women do not function on an emotional, sexual, or intellectual level. And the gains attained from these perspectives. Emotion is out. Sexuality is out. And intellectuality is out. Or they are presented in on a very low level, with not very much intensity and not very much responsiveness. That's what you can expect from most women. Because they don't need any of these factors for what they want to gain out of life, for the direction that they're going in. They don't need emotions, they don't need sex, and they don't need intellectuality. Let's be real. And every woman is going to object to that and deny that. And say, not me. I'm not like that. Yeah. Every other woman is except for you. Yeah, you're not like that. No. You know why? Maybe you're not a woman. It could be a sexual aberration.
It's 7 o'clock.
It's 7 o'clock. Oh, I gotta go. Sorry. See you guys later. No, I'm just kidding. Where were we before we were so rudely interrupted by this fucking computer? They don't need emotion, they don't need sex, and they don't need brains for where they want to get to. They must, quote unquote, respect the man, which simply means the identification of the ability and the willingness to produce, serve, and protect her. That's respect. Do you ever hear a man saying that? Ever hear a male saying that they must respect the woman? I think that's just an excuse for not having emotional capacity, is it not? There's no emotion involved. So what's left? Respect. I gotta respect. Respect for what? If he's got money, you gotta respect. If he's got status, you gotta respect. If he's pussy whipped and a pussy ass, you gotta respect. If he's willing to be controlled, if he's willing to serve. If he's passive, then you respect him. In reality, you don't, do you? You don't respect him. But you can sure fucking use him. You can sure use them to where you want to go. That's called respect. Everything a woman says must be translated, decoded. More accurately, decoded. Because everything they say is also deceptive. So you got to know these things. I'm not saying don't get into a relationship. Get into any kind of relationship you want, but you gotta know these things, don't you? Well, now you do. Now you know these things. And you're looking at her in a completely different light, aren't you? So, let me repeat this again because it's an important point. When you hear the word respect, she has respect for a good man. Oh, that sounds so awful to me. I want to puke. I want to puke when I hear that. It sounds so noble to a woman, right? And womankind. The sisterhood of women, it sounds so beautiful. Respect for a good man. But for those men who are in the know, who are aware, now we know what they really mean. Traditionalism is how a man is respected because he serves. He serves willingly and ignorantly. He's ignorant about anything that's happening to him. He's willing to sacrifice everything about himself. For what? For her? For some fucking aging, stinking old hag? For her kids? They're not your kids. They're her kids. They're her accomplishment, not yours. Just go to court. And they'll tell you whose kids they are. They're not yours. And for us men, kids are an accomplishment anyway. Our work is our accomplishment. Our work defines us. But for a woman, her progeny defines her. Definitely not her mate. And for a lot of men who are naturally in need of female validation and who are able to love, the female defines who they are, but not for women. The male partner does not define a woman. The feminists are correct in that. So they must respect a man, which simply means her identification of his ability and willingness to produce, serve, and protect. Now, let's do some further definitions here of words that women use and what they mean. Protection. Protection being misunderstood. In that what a female wants and means by protection is economic protection. Now, what does economic protection mean? Further define this. Let's further define this. Economic protection translates into economic security. Everything for a woman is security. It's not love. It's not sex. It's not intellect. It's security. And that security is economic security. Money. It means money. Any way you look at it. The feasibility of any relationship is based purely on her needs. And her needs alone. Not the needs of the male. feasibility of any relationship is based purely on her needs, and her needs alone, not the needs of the male. This she views as proper, innate, instinctual, primal, honorable, and even pious. It's her right. It's her privilege. It's her arrogance. She is absolutely inconsiderate of his actual personhood. What she is expected to contribute to the relationship and to the male is negligible to her. It is not even part of the equation. Her perceived contribution and his expected gain is sufficed by the mere fact that she is female. And in her view, nothing more should be required or expected. It is absurd to her that the male would require anything beyond her femaleness. Being female should be adequate and must suffice. She is intrinsically unaware and or dismisses any of the male's possible needs or desires, which is labeled as selfishness. And instantly and impetuously corroborated by the female collective. There's nothing more dangerous than a woman who teams up with other females and lashes out against you. In this regard, females are absolutely in allegiance with each other because they know the game. They all know their own game. It's the same game they all have. It's identical game, no matter who they are, what they look like. And they have the same directionality. And they know what a male must be used for. Used. Men using women. Ha 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 ha. What a fucking lie that is. It's nothing more than transference of their own vile behavior onto men. It's always, every relationship is defined by women using men. Doesn't matter if you're fucking Donald Trump or you're unemployed bartender. It doesn't matter who the fuck you are. You're going to be used. That is your fate in every relationship you ever get into. It happens right away. Women are coded for it. It's all they know. The whore. The whore is always there. Never goes away. This orientation and female direction may be subtle at first. You know, at the beginning of a relationship, you cannot think, you don't care, you pretend, well, I don't care, I'll just get what I want out of it, or let's play by ear, and look at her, she's pretty hot, whatever. But not her. She's already sized you up. And not your dick. She's already sized you up. And she's scheming already. She's already got plans. Already got plans for you. There's no other way. It's the whore. The whore sizes you up. The minute she spots you driving past her, she sizes you up. Oh, that looks like a rich guy. Okay. And if you're not a viable option, you will be invisible to her. That's how every woman functions. Male rejection. Where the hell do you think that comes from? You will be rejected by a female if she determines, subjectively, of course. I'm not saying accurately. Most of the time it's inaccurately. But she, nonetheless, determines that there's nothing that she can gain from you. So you don't exist. You don't exist. And your looks is not enough. It's like saying whores out are turning tricks for sex. Come on. How old are you? I've been watching too much porn. Or porn stars are doing porn for sex. No. They're doing it all for material gain. And the male is nothing more than an object. And there's no emotion involved. There. We got women all figured out. Just like that. Isn't it easy? It's super easy. This orientation of female direction may be subtle at first, and it is disguised, downplayed, denied, and feigned as something different, as something nice, as something clean, as something sensitive, as something compassionate, as something nurturing, for fear of it being identified as repulsive, immoral, and thus, what are women afraid of the most? Public shame. Shame, public shame. So they will disguise it as anything you want, other than what it really is. Being the whore. Because being the whore, openly, honestly, conspicuously is, it might be shameful to her. So it is disguised. And it fools you too, doesn't it? It fools everybody. Oh yeah. And then comes the victimhood mentality. Presentation of her as a victim, herself as a victim. And you, conversely, as the abuser. You're abusive. You jerk, you're abusive. And every woman she knows that you're abusive. There's no question about it, you're fucking abusive. And the relationship is not working. She needs to escape, defend herself, run away from the abuse. It has to be portrayed as something different for fear of it being identified as repulsive, immoral, and shameful. This orientation or female direction may be subtle at first, and it is disguised, downplayed, denied, and feigned as something different for fear of it being identified as repulsive and immoral. And thus shameful. But her game is on. The minute she selects her pursuer, whom she permits not to have possession of her, she will not give herself. But she will allow him to merely pursue her. Wow, what a privilege. He has the privilege to be allowed to pursue her. Today's modern woman, or any woman throughout history, going back to Adam and Eve, would never even imagine conceding to any man for any reason, unless direct or long-term expected gains will result in her favor. Let me read that again. Today's modern woman, or any woman throughout history, going back to Adam and Eve, would never even imagine conceding to any man for any reason unless direct, long-term, expected gains will result in her favor. What she has to sell and offer is only one thing, and that's her body. Every woman is a natural born whore. It's the way they function by default. And if you go around saying that they were made to be whores and treated as whores, you are not far from being accurate. Because they define themselves. You're not defining them. They're defining themselves. They're making the statement. You're not making the statement. You're not guilty of anything. They're guilty. It's the way they act. It's the way they behave. It's the only way they know. The highly effectual and misleading semblance of female submission. Now listen to this. The highly effectual and misleading semblance of female submission is the most integral and fundamental element of her game. Let me read that again in case you missed it. The highly effectual and misleading semblance of female submission. Submission. Female submission. Keyword here is semblance of female submission. Is the most integral and fundamental element of her game. It is what misleads the male. It is specifically what misleads the male. A woman's concession to a man is always based on her anticipated male control and anticipated material gains that the male will provide either directly or through association with him in terms of a lifestyle or in terms of allowing her, enabling her to reproduce and to have her kids. Even if it's not financial, there's a whole host of other gains that she can gain from your sorry ass. And she has the eye on that, not on you. A woman's concession to a man is always based on her anticipated male control and anticipated material gains that the male will provide either directly or through association with him. Her concession for the male is never based on emotional or sexual gains, as the male idealizes and fantasizes. See? This is why the comments frustrate me. Because they're not based on reality. Anything based on fantasy bugs my ass. Because we're not getting forward if we're going to be stuck in fantasy, in the fantasy world. Concessions for the male is never based on emotional or sexual gains, as the male idealizes into wanting to believe. Her game is to only hoodwink the male into believing otherwise through a false sense of aspirational male empowerment. Going back to the original comments, what is that? It is aspirational male empowerment. I'm in control and women want to submit to a real man. Bull fucking crap. In your fucking dreams, put on some S&M porn and believe it. Believe it to be true. If you're that stupid. This is the reason why, if a male does not cater to a female, to any female, she will not allow for any association to take place or to continue. Why are you divorced? Here's the reason. Here's the male The main reason. Let me read that again. This is the reason why if a male does not cater to female, she will not allow for any association to ever take place, or if it already has commenced, she will not allow its continuation. It is systematically and biologically impossible for the female to tolerate and endure any association where she is not, in fact, quote unquote, not wearing the pants. She must be wearing the pants, even though she may pretend not to, fool you that she's not. She in fact must. Or she will not continue the relationship unless she's in control and she's dominant. Not the way I want it. Don't get angry at me. I'm just giving you reality. In fact, the woman wears the pants. Previous video, you have no choice. If you're going to be in a relationship, you have no choice. She will be wearing the pants no matter who the fuck you are and how fucking tough you are. To her, it doesn't matter. Right? Now, here is the revelation from this particular discussion. The revelation. The sexual strategies of the genders is purely based on 1, fantasy, and 2, deception. Fantasy and deception. Fantasy and deception. Deception and fantasy. Deception and fantasy. What are the 2 things? Fantasy and deception. So who's deceiving who? And who's fantasizing? Can you guess? It's the male fantasy of domination over a female who will be subservient and submissive to his masculinity. That's fantasy. Fantasy. Pure fantasy. While the female must deceive the male by portraying this facade long enough to trap the male under her submission and incremental control. Incremental, guys. Incremental. Little by little by little by little, your ass is boiled. And a few years later, you wake up. And what do you see? What do you find? But you're not the same person any longer. Your ass has been boiled by who you thought was a submissive female who wanted to submit to a real man. What a fucking joke! That's one way to get your ass kicked. It's one way to get you kicked in the head, kicked in the gut. It's one way to be trampled on. Well, it's the way to be trampled on, if you keep that up. Because that's exactly what she wants you to think, not me. I'm all for it. Boy, am I for it. But that's what she wants you to believe. That she submitted to you. Does she really? Is there really such a thing? Come on, be honest. Tell me. A subservient female. On what fucking planet? Tell me and I will go there. While the female must deceive the male by portraying this facade long enough to trap the male under her submission and incremental control. In other words, the entire mating game is nothing more than a fucking scam of fantasy and deception. The scam of fantasy and deception. And you're going around feeling that you're a macho man. And you've got the pants on. You've got the fucking pants on. Yeah, you'll have the pants on in divorce court as well. She's perfectly fine with that. It's amazing what they can fucking do. Amazing. And you're letting it happen, aren't you? You're even uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable when I say expose them, shame them, make them accountable, point out the rottenness of their female nature. You're uncomfortable. That's your indoctrination. You're programmed to be one way, and when I tell you to be another way, you can't do it. You're scared. As soon as I said that, there's a whole bunch of you who were uncomfortable. All kinds of excuses. Oh, it won't do anything. It won't lead to anything. It's of no use. She won't care. She'll be even worse. No. It's like Hillary Clinton. Okay? She was never criticized. She was never questioned. She was never exposed. And she became arrogant. And abusive, yes, abusive. With a sugar coating. Of purity and goodness. And compassion. And she's so emotional. She's not fucking emotional at all. You're emotional. And she knows you're fucking emotional. And that's exactly where she hits you. Because she's got strengths that you don't have. And she knows it. And those slimy girlfriends of hers know it as well. Because you mean nothing. You're an object. You're there to be used, deceived, lied to. Emotional pretense. And you're there to be made bad, to be kicked. Every fucking day you're there to be kicked. Incrementally. And you're uncomfortable exposing her. You're scared to do it. You're scared of her. You should be. You should be. But try not to be. It's your only defense. Expose. Make accountable and punish. That's how you get your dignity back. That's how you stand up for yourself. That's a real man. A real man will not be controlled, will not be dominated. A real man will not submit to a vile, lying, pathetically dishonest creature. In other words, the entire mating game is nothing more than a scam. The scam of fantasy and deception. The female designed as the perfect deception machine. High performance deception machine. From the very first fucking moment. Women do not need emotions to function. Women marry men whom they don't love. Women marry men. This is the majority of women. Believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe. But they marry not for love. They even marry men they detest. Men they have no physical attraction to. Men who I'm sorry to say, men who cannot fulfill them in any way. But that's not really a statement on men. It's a statement on this vile creature who goes through it to deceive and to use the man for years. And you end up like these poor SOBs, and they don't even know what was done to them and what's being done to them every day. They do it because they're programmed to do it. They are told that that's a good man. That's a man that can be respected. That's a real man. That's no man. That's a little fucking mouse. Serving her every fucking moment of the day. Serving her. And she is ungrateful and abusive. And it's never enough. And the SOB has no clue what his fate is and what's happening to him. He's working for what? Working for what? The disgusting thing is that women routinely have associations with men they have no emotions towards. If that's the case, leave him alone. Don't deceive him. Leave him alone. Because that's not what's important to them. It's what they gain. They have boyfriends. They're predatory. And the problem with that is emotional insincerity. All for material gain, whatever their purpose is at the moment. Momentary usage of the male is all they care about. What's in it for them? They don't even care who it is. A year later it's somebody else. A year later it's somebody else. Cycle, 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 cycle. And they close it off. They close it off for several reasons. One of them is that they have no use for you whatsoever. Absolutely no use for you whatsoever, regardless of who you are. Because they realize they can't gain from you anything else. You're used up. You're useless. You don't exist. You're a non-person. The second reason is they have to pretend purity. Everything is pretense with a female. Nothing's real. Nothing is fucking real. Not even her tits. What I'm saying, strip her down. Symbolically strip her down. And also physically strip her down. And you will see that you will find something very different than what was portrayed. You have been deceived every fucking step of the way. Because you live in fantasy. Now, hey, I'm not blaming you. We are all susceptible to this. Because we work on a different level. We work on an emotional level. Men work on an emotional level. You women do not. You have no use for it. Absolutely no fucking use for it. Men have. It's mandatory for a man to work on an emotional level. We can't even function sexually if we don't work on an emotional level. Women can spread their legs, feel nothing, and have sex with the ugliest son of a bitch in the world, and they have no reservations about it. Where for a man, it would be a disgusting act. And frankly, most of us couldn't go through with it. Not a woman. No problem. No problem. It's like, why'd you fucking do that? You get all kinds of excuses. But we know why. A momentary gain. It could be as simple as emotional self-medication to elevate her self-confidence. So she has a one-night stand. And then next day, you're reported for rape. And you're clueless as to what happened. Because you're working on a whole different level, aren't you? Than she is. This is a savage animal you're dealing with. And the savage animals do not have remorse. They do not have feelings. They do not feel guilt. They have no conscience. Savage animals do not have conscience. You do. They don't. The female is designed as the perfect deception machine, and the male designed as the perfect dolt to be deceived. The perfect dolt to be deceived. They are both innately built. Both genders are innately built for their respective roles, unfortunately. The female will feign everything in her disposal: emotional, physical, behavioral, sexual, in order to deceive the male into submission. The end goal being the securing of his full commitment to her and her alone. The lesson for today is the mechanism of sexual mating strategy of males and females, which are vastly different, and they take vastly different directionality with different goals and objectives. Again, a previous lecture that I had, previous video, is that there is no compatibility between males and females. There's no compatibility. It can only be pretended and faked if the male concedes. The female will never concede to the male. If she has to do that, she will claim and determine that the relationship is not working. It is not working if she has to concede. If she has to concede, it's not working. If you concede as a male, then you're a good man. And the relationship is, well, temporarily at least, for the time, working. Working for her, not for you. Both males and females will play the deceiver. Okay, this is important here, actually, because I know you were going to say, well, you're going to say, well, males also deceive women. Yes, but there's a big but involved with this, okay? And this but is that both males and females will play the deceiver and may be vulnerable and subjected to being deceived. However, for any relationship to begin and to be sustained, the male must take the role of the deceived. The male can never be the deceiver if the relationship is to continue past the one-night stand level. You can do that. You can brag about it, but you're not going to get very far with any female. She must be the deceiver, not you. You can only get away with it once. He must either willingly or unknowingly accept the role of the deceived. He must allow himself or unknowingly be lied to and deceived into believing something which is not reality. It is completely certain that if you are a male or whatever passes for a male these days, in a relationship now with a female, you are the one being deceived and you are the one who is dominated and controlled. If you're in a relationship now, I can tell you certainly, with total certainty, that you are the one that's being deceived and you're the one that's being dominated. And you may have the pants on, but who gives a fuck what you're wearing? The male is the servant by nature in any relationship. If it is not so, the female will conclude the relationship at her earliest opportunity and dismiss the male for one who will better fit her job description. You're chosen for a job, and if you don't do it properly, you're let go, you're disposed of. And it doesn't matter if you're in a marriage, you just got married, you have been married for 20 years, 10 years, 30 years, or you're dating women, one woman, several women, doesn't matter. You're in the same situation, my friend. You can go on and think you're wearing the pants, but who really is wearing the pants? Be honest.